So now I just want to talk a little bit about the career path. And by that I mean making the decision between industry versus consulting. So there are a lot of differences, but I think it's also important to know that you're never locked into one or another. So a traditional path is often starting consulting and then jump to industry later on once you figure out what you like. But I've seen the other way happen as well, where folks jump into an industry they're really excited about, they gain some experience, and then they decide that they want to do consulting. And consulting firms are often very happy to hire experienced talent from companies as well. So just wanted to sort of lay out the differences and then have a brief discussion of the consulting world as well, and just sort of what type of consulting firms are there and how you might think about that if that interests you. But broadly, kind of the puts and takes between industry and consulting are no different in operations, than in, I think, all other lines of businesses as well. So in industry, I think the major positive is the operational responsibility that you get. So ultimately, if you join industry and it is something that interests you, you could definitely see yourself growing into a role where you're actually responsible for production, you're responsible for delivering goods, you're responsible for business and business performance, and you have decision authority. And that's really exciting to a lot of people. And a lot of consultants, they always find that this is something that's lacking in their day-to-day jobs. On the con side of industry, I would just say kind of the classic, the growth is more linear than accelerated. So you'll probably have defined career promotion, defined salary growth over time. Then on the consulting side, I think the two biggest pros are the rapid exposure. So in 2 or 3 years, you'll probably serve dozens of clients, if not a handful. You'll learn a lot in a really quick amount of time. And you'll grow, and your salaries will grow as well, more than linearly. And then on the cons of consulting are the usual. So the one that I already mentioned is you'll have probably limited decision authority. You might have limited depth, and I found this for myself as well, that I've been an operations consultant for 3 years. I've served lots of industries, but I'm not as deep. And someone who's been in a role for 2 or 3 years, they have much more expertise than I do. So that's one thing. It's difficult to build depth in consulting. And then, of course, the travel and lifestyle is going to be pretty intense. And so if I were to just kind of pause and just talk a little bit about the types of consulting firms out there and with the lens of operations consulting, this is how I would structure it. So there's the Big 10 management consultancies, and they vary in their, I guess, the amount of operations work that they do and the amount of development that they have and dedication that they have to operations consultants. But these are kind of the usual McKinsey, BCG, Bain, Accenture, Deloitte, A.T. Kearney, et cetera. But there are, even amongst these, I think there are leaders, or there are at least ones that have dedicated practices and dedicated recruiting streams and like specific development. And so the ones that come to mind are definitely like McKinsey, A.T. Kearney, Deloitte, and PRTM that really jump to top of mind when I think operations. And this is just sort of my biased view. I would encourage you guys to speak to others as well. Then there's the boutique consulting firms. And these are the ones that they might be really good at a particular function, or often what you'll see is really sophisticated analytics. So there's a couple firms that I've listed here, analytics, and another firm called end-to-end analytics. And these firms are basically like, it's all PhDs on staff or people with advanced degrees, and they're helping solve complicated supply chain problems, often like inventory modeling or network configuration. And so for people who are really excited by that stuff, these types of roles are really neat at these firms. And then finally, there's IT and software consulting. So these companies will develop software that help you run your supply chain, and then they'll often have consultants help implement that software or act as consultants to come up with some strategy using their software. And i2 and iLog are companies that come to mind. Again, these are more on the analytical side. So they develop software to handle very complicated network configuration problems. So depending on what you're looking for, more general, more focused, or specific flavors of consulting, this is how I would sort of break down the world. So we've talked about industries, we've talked about functions, we've talked about career paths, but ultimately, the way I would view it is just think about what you really, really like doing, and then from that consider where you might want to go. Because I think that, at least personally, like if on a day-to-day basis you're doing what you like, you're solving the problems that are interesting to you, then it really doesn't matter too much what industry you're in or whether you're a consultant or not. Like if you're happy day to day, I think you'll be successful, and you'll also have the passion to seek out those careers that you really like. So I started a list here. So it's like, if you like, then these are the types of roles you might consider. So if you're a really mathematical person, you like mathematical modeling, you like probability and statistics, maybe you're an industrial engineer or a math guy or girl in university, then you may want to consider those boutique consulting roles that I had mentioned, because you'll really have a flavor, you'll really get a chance to work with like-minded people solving really complicated problems. And probably they'll have the highest level of analytical rigor out of any place that you can go, if that's important to you. And of course, we're kind of stripping aside the entire academic side of the world, which is obviously something to consider if this is really one of your passions. If you like negotiations, and I'm sure right off the bat, a lot of people probably, they may or may not like negotiations, so it's something you probably have to try to figure out whether you really like or not. But you'd probably be surprised how exciting it can be. So if you like negotiations, then it's procurement and supply management is something that you should really consider. So you're basically almost on an annual basis, you're negotiating contracts with companies, and the people at the table that you're negotiating with, are often senior people at the supplier. So you'll be negotiating with the CEOs or the COOs or like very senior people at the other side. So if you like that stuff, then this would be a great career for you to choose. If you like working with clients and really like working on like large decisions that will shape the strategy of a company, then consulting roles or operational strategy roles within industry are ones that would probably suit you best. If you like having operational responsibility, having decision authority, being ultimately the one responsible for good performance or bad performance, then supply and demand planning, or even procurement and supply management for that matter, would be good. And of course, in industry is where you want to be doing that. If you like large machines, large production flows, if you walk into a steel plant and are mesmerized by molten metal flowing through huge ladles, forming steel, just things like that, if that excites you, then I would really suggest careers in industrial, oil and gas, just large manufacturing settings on the production side of things. If you like technology or IT, technology consulting is a good one. And if it's important to you to be an extremely respected, being in an extremely respected role in an organization, then think about what I had discussed earlier about the industries like retail, consumer goods, and electronics, where the supply chain folks are really well-respected individuals. And there's probably a lot more, but I guess what I'm trying to convey here is that think about your passions first, and then use that to filter out where and how you want to go about your career search.